Joining me now is the CEO of Schwartz Investment Counsel and the portfolio manager for the Ave Maria Mutual Funds. He's also author of a brand new book, In God We Trust, Morally Responsible Investing. Welcome back to the program, George Schwartz. George, great to see you.
Great to be with you again,
I want to start with some new statistics that were just released. I saw CNS News said the Republican Congress has increased the national debt by nearly $8 trillion over 8 years. How is that fiscally responsible?
Well, it's not really, Raymond, and it'd be nice if Republican Congress and Democrat Congresses could balance the budget. But as Richard Nixon said many years ago, we're all Keynesians now, which means bigger government spending, more taxation, and it's unfortunate. But President Trump is turning that around to some degree, especially with the tax rate cuts, and the reduced regulations, which were so onerous, put in place by the Obama administration, of course. And my friend Larry Kudlow, has been preaching for many years that tax rate cuts on corporations and individuals stimulates the economy, grows the economy, and is a positive in every respect. And that's helped a lot in the last 2 years. And the stock market has reflected that by going up.
Yeah, let's talk about this question of debt for a second. CNBC talked to millennials. 60% of them said they doubt if they will ever get to the point when they'll be able to pay off what they owe. What do you say to these young people who might be watching?
It's a tough question. I don't have an answer. I don't have a magic solution. I've preached for many years the evils of debt, personal debt especially. And I encourage my employees to not even have a mortgage on their house. Just pay off debts. But these kids that have borrowed, some cases, $100,000 to go to college.
Or more,
yeah. And it's not a good thing. And they've got to just do the best they can to pay it down. And if they invest wisely, if they have some money to invest, like in our mutual funds, that might help them too.
Well, let's talk about that. And because I want to get to more tax rates for a minute. So many people, the old wisdom was, take your money, put it in the bank, it's going to grow. That penny saved is a penny earned, and it's going to continue to block. That's not the case now. We have these interest rates that are in the toilet, 2% on your money. What would you recommend a young married couple starting life? They don't have a lot, and they probably have debts they're paying off. What should they do? How should they break down their money?
Well, Warren Buffett had a quote several years ago, which I remember. He said, the Lord helps those who help themselves, but unlike the Lord, the market doesn't forgive those who know not what they do. Got to get that quote right. But anyways, it's people have to educate themselves. They have to learn the merits of capitalism, the merits of democracy, which is very important within our capitalist society, at least in this country. And if they read my book, they'll learn a good way to invest, morally responsible investing.
And we're going to talk about that in a second. I want to get your opinion. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez waived the possibility this week of a 70% tax rate to fund her new Green New Deal, and where you'd have no carbon emissions at all. You'd pay all of that off, and the only way to do that is to tax upper income earners at 70%. What's wrong with that idea?
Oh, what a great idea that is! I just can't think of anything which would help the economy better.
When you're looking to empower government, it's a good idea.
Yeah, well, I don't know whether she is just naive and too young to have not been able to experience the horrors of socialism or not, or maybe she's in the camp with a lot of Democrats that just want to do things to hurt the economy and hurt the stock market with the hopes of stymieing Trump from getting reelected. But it's a ridiculous idea. The top 1% of earners now pay 38% of the income taxes.
Right.
The top 50% pay virtually all the income taxes, 98%. Right. Which means the lower 50% pay 2% of the income taxes. But trying to undo the good things that President Trump has done is the wrong idea in terms of being pro-growth.
I read an article in the Washington Post this week, and it said Ocasio-Cortez's idea is not so far off the mark. In the 50s and 60s, we had tax rates that were around 70% and higher. So what's wrong with that?
It's ridiculous. It stymies economic growth. It stymies opportunity. It is not a pro-growth approach. And President Trump's very sound policy of reduced tax rates for corporations and individuals, and importantly, reduced regulations, helps the economy in so many respects.
You're talking in your book about the fascination of socialism. It really has become chic again to be socialist. Yeah. Where do you think this is coming from? Is it just ignorance?
Well, it's certainly ignorance and lack of education among young people. You know, the colleges and universities, as you well know, Raymond, are taught, have professors who were the flower children of the 60s, you know, the drug-smoking hippies. And they dominate the universities, the public universities anyways. And they have never grown to appreciate the merits of capitalism and how capitalism has lifted so many hundreds of people, maybe billions of people out of poverty, created jobs, created opportunities, created wealth, created the opportunity for foundations and endowments, which do an awful lot of social good. And socialism has never worked in the history of the world, no matter any place it's been tried.
In this new book, George, In God We Trust, you say this is an updated version, or you started it as an update of your previous book, Good Returns. What's changed in your approach and from the previous work to this?
Yeah, well, this was going to be an update of the very successful Ave Maria Mutual Funds and the morally responsible investing approach we used to produce those good results. But thanks to the advice and counsel of my colleague and son, Bob Schwartz, he said, why don't you expand the focus and include sections about capitalism versus socialism? Because there's so many young people and so many liberals that, as you pointed out, are being attracted to it. And it's ridiculous. It's never worked. It can't work. The great Ronald Reagan, once said that socialism can only work in two places. Heaven where they don't need it, and in hell where they already have it.
Well, I mean, or Venezuela or Cuba. I mean, it's not like we don't have contemporary examples of how this plays out.
Exactly.
And it's very bad for the people. It's why they're all streaming, trying to get somewhere else. It's why your heart breaks watching these people make this long, dangerous trek to America. But this is the fruit of this system. It doesn't work. Tell me about, when you talk about morally responsible investing, how do you weigh these companies? How do you say this company is one we'll invest in and that is off limits? What's the criteria?
Well, we're very blessed as portfolio managers. My company has a Catholic advisory board to advise us on what not to invest in. And that Catholic advisory board is made up of prominent lay Catholics. Many of them you know, many of them are your friends, like Tom Monahan of Domino's Pizza fame, Robbie George, Professor Robert George from Princeton, and Coach Lou Holtz.
Lou Holtz, a great man, such a great man.
Wonderful individual, yeah. A very compassionate man, a very bright man, very patriotic man. So that Catholic Advisory Board is also advised by two distinguished members of the clergy, the retired Archbishop of Detroit, Cardinal Maida, and the current Archbishop of Detroit, Archbishop Vigneron. So they set the standard for what we should not invest in. I can tell you what categories
give me the quick thumbnail. What don't you invest in? I mean, let me give you, for instance, tobacco companies?
It's not prohibited.
Not prohibited.
Right.
Oil, I assume, would be
not
fine.
Prohibited.
But companies that traffic in porn, I imagine, or
porn is out.
Abortion.
Abortion. Abortion's the big one. Our 100,000 shareholders are unanimous that they don't want any of their money invested in a company that supports abortion.
What about cannabis? Cannabis is a big, booming industry. You see them legalizing it all over the country, and people are throwing billions of dollars at it.
Yeah, we're not going to invest in cannabis companies. You know, gateway drug, nothing good is going to come from the legalization of recreational pot. No. So our shareholders don't want that. We're not going to go in that
How
direction.
do your returns compare to an average mutual fund?
All 5 of our Ave Maria Mutual Funds beat the category average for each fund last year. In fact, one of our funds, the Ave Maria Bond Fund, was the #1 fund in the country in its category. So we're very proud of that.
Wow. Give me a sense, and you've got a lot of people watching, they're wondering, I don't know where to start. What are your advice bullet points to the first-time investor who's thinking, the volatility of this market is scary. And it's gone up, 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 up. And you know, if it goes up, there's only one way it's going to go.
Yeah.
So they're sitting it out. What would you say to
A
them?
lot of people are sitting it out, and if they're serious long-term investors, they ought to invest now. There's nothing wrong with it. The great Sir John Templeton used to say, any day is a good enough day to buy a good enough stock or a good enough mutual fund. And I think the Ave Maria Mutual Funds are great mutual funds, and they've performed well. I think they're going to continue to perform well, and I'm optimistic about the economy in general, the stock market in general. And
Even with all the trade battles, even with the divided Congress, you're bullish on this market.
yes, those things will pass. These things too will pass. And trade's an important thing to get straight, and get the Chinese to stop stealing our intellectual property. Very, very important. But those things will pass. Those will be resolved. And in the meantime, corporate profits continue to go up quite sharply. This past year, they're up 24%.
Except for Apple.
Not as much there. But even in this current year, earnings are going to be up again, probably in the neighborhood of 8 or 10%, not 24%. But after 24%, 8% or 10% on top of that is significant.
Yeah.
And the stock market and corporate earnings generally track pretty close, not exactly, not step by step, but it's a strong economy, and the policies of President Donald Trump are helping the economy grow, and will continue to help the stock market, I believe.
George Schwartz, before I let you go, the biggest mistake investors make is what?
Trying to outguess the near-term swings in the stock market. Trying to say, well, gee, there's all these clouds on the horizon. I better take my money out of the stock market and wait till things become a little more clear. Well, when things are clear, the stock prices are already a lot higher. So don't try to time the market. Don't try to outguess the near-term swings in the market, and invest for the long run, and invest in, get good advice from investment professionals like the people who work at my firm. And if you invest in a morally responsible way, I think you'll do very well over the long term.
Are there fees for getting into a mutual fund like yours?
Many mutual funds have fees, front-end loads, back-end loads.
Back-end loads, yeah.
Ours don't have that. They have a normal management fee, which comes out of the fund itself. But no, when someone puts $1,000 into one of our funds, all $1,000 goes into it. There's no commissions or no front-end load.
Very good. George Schwartz, thank you so much. The book is In God We Trust, Morally Responsible Investing by George Schwartz. It's available at bookstores everywhere and online. And you can find out about Ave Maria Mutual Funds at avemariafunds.com.